Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to today's SKIP webinar. My name is Michelle Winter, and I am the Director of Education Programming here at SKIP, and I'll be moderating our presentation today, Evolving CI Technology from the Age of Collectors to the Age of Augmented Intelligence. I'm going to go through some quick guidelines to ensure that your experience during the program is maximized. Simple guidelines: this is a live webinar. Your computer will show the presentation and stream the live audio, so make sure that your computer audio is on. All participants are muted during the duration of the program. There is a Q&A function that is active, which enables you to type your question in for me, the moderator. We will ask and answer as many questions as possible and as time permits. Those we don't get to will be addressed at a later date and sent out to all the attendees. We don't foresee any technical issues. However, sometimes the internet does have connection issues, and should this happen, we will contact you regarding rescheduling. Our program today will be presented by Jesper Martell of Comintelli and Paul Santilli of HPE. And with that said, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Michelle, and welcome to everyone attending. So my name is Jesper Martell, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Comintelli. I'm actually the person on the right here on the screen, without the beard. I think if I were to grow one, we would be almost identical twins. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing.
it's
anyway,
a good thing. A good thing, Jesper.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, Comintelli is a Swedish software company. We provide a cloud-based platform for competitive and market intelligence called Intelligence Today. And we've been in business for about 20 years, so hopefully some of you at least recognize us. We've had the fortune of working on competitive intelligence solutions with some of the largest and most successful companies in the world. And I think we've done a lot of research also into how artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies can be used to support competitive intelligence. And so personally, I see tremendous opportunities and possibilities in this technology. And Paul and I have been doing this for a while, so I'll leave it over to Paul to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jesper. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. My name is Paul Santilli. I work for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and I head up the worldwide OEM division on the industry intelligence and strategy side. And what that means is essentially focusing on our intelligence insights, gathering and analytics and taxonomy are related to presenting actionable insights around the OEM business model that we have. It's a multi-billion-dollar business within Hewlett-Packard Enterprise as a whole. I am also currently the chairman of the board of directors for SKIP organization, and also a managing partner in a company called Strategence LLC, which is a partner company that's focused on intelligence and strategy development. So one of the things I wanted to mention before we get into the slides real very quickly is this concept related to collections to augmented intelligence. As many of you on the phone may know, that the industries in general are really, the hottest thing right now is really artificial intelligence and machine learning aspects, and the exponential growth in those fields and the application of those technologies to the various industries around the world is super involved and increasing dramatically in terms of the ability to become more of a predictive and prescriptive environment on data collection and data methodologies. And one of the things that we talk about here in this presentation is really around utilizing this technology of AI and ML within the confines of the competitive intelligence and business intelligence envelope. And there is tremendous opportunities in this space for perfecting the intelligence and driving the intelligence, especially when we're living in a world that basically changes every minute. As you know, many of you are very well aware of the fact that we live in a very big data-driven environment. We have the speed by which data is generated and coming across is unparalleled in history. The volume of data is unbelievably large, and in order to make any sort of sense in order to drive any sort of intelligence decisions around all of this data. You need to be able to have a sufficient level of tools in your intelligence toolbox that will allow you to be able to make actionable decisions in a timely manner. And this is where we believe use of AI and ML in this intelligence space is going to allow us to be better data management individuals and practitioners when you're faced with these sorts of challenges in the industry space. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jesper to start the slide deck.
Good, thanks, Paul. And I'd also like to say that a lot of what we're going to talk about today is actually based on a session, an interactive session that Paul and I held at the SCIP conference in Orlando in May. That was more of a discussion, which is going to be a bit more difficult now, but we thought we'd at least try and share some of the results of the surveys and the discussions that we had at that event as well. And so the first part of this presentation, I thought, is going to be a bit more about how things are being done today when it comes to competitive intelligence and sort of the current status of MI and CI technology. And also share some of the results, as I said, about the surveys that we've done with you, just to give you a feel for where we are now. And then we will take it one step further into the future as well and start talking about augmented intelligence. So the first thing that we probably need to do is define what we're going to talk about. What is CI technology? And here I'm actually going to use a definition that Forrester Research has defined. I think it's very good. It's very succinct and to the point. When it's really about collecting data and information from internal and external sources, bringing it all together, allowing people to search and analyze this information about competitors and the market in general. And then once that's been done, using different dissemination techniques like dashboards and templates to share the insights that you get across their organizations. I think this is a really good definition. Basically, collecting, finding, combining and organizing information to identify and communicate opportunities throughout the organization. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, just to be clear on that. And then, as we mentioned in the beginning, Paul and I have done this type of session and presentation on AI and machine learning and competitive technology in the intelligence world for the last couple of years. And correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but we've probably talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of participants. And
correct.
Very, very often we start out by doing a quick survey and asking participants how they would rate their current tools and technology in terms of how it supports the different phases of competitive intelligence. So I thought it would share that. This is the response, the sort of the combined response from the last two SCIP events that we've been to, but I think it gives you quite a good picture of average picture of where companies are today. And this is on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is strongly disagree and 5 is strongly agree to these statements. And so we asked them, how well do you collect information today from internal and external sources? How well do you process it? Score of 2.9. How well do you search and find information today? And use search technology? Pretty good, average sort of 3.2. How well do you use analytics today? Can you use it for creating different visualizations, etc.? All right, but still sort of 2.9. Collaboration also 2.8. How can you use technology tools to share intelligence? And then finally deliver, which scored the lowest score here, which is a bit interesting. And I think this gives a pretty good picture of how companies are actually using CI tools today, where it helps them the most. For me, I think it shows that, I mean, we are very good at using the tools for collecting information, and then we're sort of average to poor when it comes to analytics and collaboration and delivery. And for me, this sort of shows that we're still, or many companies at least, are still stuck in what we call the age of collectors, where we use technology mainly to collect information from different sources. And I think too many still use it just to sort of mine the internet, mine the web, create weekly newsletters and things like that, which is fine, by the way. Technology is very good at collecting, but at the same time, it shows sort of the limits in how we are using technology. There's so much more to do in sort of analytics and collaboration and delivery, to not just use technology to push out information, but rather sort of add more value by having sort of users come and use the technology, more sort of demand driven. And I think this shows that there is a strong potential to use technology much more than we do today.
So these findings, I think, are extremely important from a practitioner standpoint. And the reason why I say that, there's two fundamental areas from a practitioner perspective that I think are absolutely critical to be relevant in the competitive intelligence space. One is, of course, the time to insights, and the other is the time to execution. And with this data that's being shown here, the ability to gather insights, you could collect the data, but gather insights from it is very low. And moreover, the ability to execute on it, which is more the collaboration and your delivery section, is even lower yet. And if you have companies that really struggle in those two areas, they remain extremely vulnerable to being taken advantage of, I guess, by the competitors in that market. So the ability for us to employ mechanisms, tools, methodologies, whatever the case might be, in order to shorten up the time to insights and shorten up that time to execution, those two elements, and being fluent in managing those two elements, will give you that competitive advantage.
Yep, I agree completely. And so moving on then, what is the value of using MI and CI technology, and specifically, I think, using, in this case, artificial intelligence, or more precisely, machine learning and text analytics and clustering technologies. And I think there is a huge potential to do that, to sort of supercharge CI platforms. There's so much more potential to make CI more, sorry about this. I don't know if I just need to close this down. There's so much more potential in using technology to make CI a bit more eye-opening, and, as Paul said, give new insights and be more demand-driven than just pushing out newsletters about things that people already know. So I think this is a good summary as well. This also comes from Forrester, where they explain some of the key things where you can use new technology like AI to, one, aggregate all these different sources. And this is something that machines and technology can do at a speed and a scale that humans will never be able to match. So that's a clear value that you can get. Also using, number two, using AI in CI solutions to package the insights that you get, so that users, it matches sort of users' perspectives better, in a way, using visualizations like word clouds and heat maps and clusters and charts that you can use in presentations to make it more attractive to consume the information, make it more actionable. And then the final point, using multiple methods to support insights to action as well. Here, I think it has a lot to do with integration, integrating the deliverables from CI into other applications. So into a CRM applications or a content management system, so that whatever intelligence and insights you find is made available to all the decision makers within the applications that they actually already use. So I think these are some of the key values that technology can help you with when you're working with competitive intelligence. And then we often ask our participants to give some examples of tools that they're using today for competitive intelligence. Just to illustrate the things that we were discussing before, these are some practical examples of how companies are using it today. And there are lots, as you see, there are lots of different tools and loads of answers that we get. This is just a sample of some of the ones, of the type of tools that people respond to.
So the good thing here is that tools are an integral part of the portfolio for a CI individual. And that's good that, there are tools out there that have varying degrees of utilization and completeness in terms of the portfolio of requirements that are needed in order to bring an analytics proposal from, womb to tomb, so to speak. So the good thing here is that many tools are being utilized. What's a concern here is that there are many tools that have varying degrees of ability to shorten those time to insights and time to execution factors down. And one of the key elements here is really to identify how those tools can fit in the organization. And secondly, if they really do achieve the best optimal balance between cost and performance, and moreover, those metrics of how to reduce that time to insights and time to execution portion. So that's something to really take into consideration here when you look at these tools.
Yeah, and also I think it's very clear as well that there is no sort of clear best practice or single solution that does it all. I think the trick in this is trying, and what most companies do is trying to use some of these tools and then combine them in a way that gives them the results and the insights that they need. So I think this is a good representation of where we are today. And this is actually also reflected when we ask companies what some of their main challenges are in using CI technologies today. So we do this and we send it out, and the results are presented in a word cloud format, and what their main challenges are in using these type of technologies. And what comes up here is very much well, you can see integration is at the top of the list. Again, speaking to what we were just talking about, there's so many different, not just different types of sources. So you have to integrate sources internally and externally. That's one integration that you have to take care of. And then, of course, integrating the intelligence tools themselves. So all the different analytics software and content management tools and collaboration tools that has to work together. And then the last part is sort of also has a lot to do with integration, is into other delivery platforms that your users are using, like Office 365 or Slack or Salesforce or Outlook or whatever applications you want to integrate with. So that is a big challenge for a lot of users. And I think the main one, the other two I think that stand out from the data that we've seen is that a challenge is getting good quality information as well. Sort of ensuring that it's relevant and it's accurate, both, I mean, not just from external sources like the web, but also internal sources. How do you make sure that the right people are responding and commenting and things like that? And how do you keep tab of that? That's a challenge as well.
So there are some very explicit messages, as Jesper pointed out here, in terms of the top areas that are difficult or challenges, but there are also some implicit messaging here, because things related to the ability to communicate and disseminate the information, as was talked about, these imply organizational impacts. And as many companies or many people know that many companies around the world are still very silo-based. You have very silo-focused CI functions. You have very different reporting structures, and how your CI information transcends itself into the executive decision-making process to be part of that strategy of the organization. And those organizational structures differ greatly amongst organizations. So the ability to understand what sort of makeup and matrix of the organization is critical in being able to address and these two major factors that I keep talking about: time to insights and execution. So there are implicit messages you can pull out of here as well, not only of what's obviously being stated on the chart, but some underlying themes that can also impact and be critical to the development of a appropriate CI model.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. So I think with this, we've sort of given you a taste of where we are today in terms of MI and CI technology, some of the challenges the company are meeting, and some of the ways that they're using technology today. And so we thought we'd move on now to sort of the next step, and what we call perhaps the age of augmented intelligence. I'm not sure if it's the best name, but it's really has to do with using more AI-based and machine learning-based technologies?
So as Jesper pointed out, the combination of machine and human aspects. I mean, this is essentially, if you read about much of this information, much of this technology, and on a lot of the business journals and so forth, they always talk about, what level will the automation aspect, the AI aspect, take over technology and jobs and things of that nature in today's world versus how much will humans be involved. And there's arguments on both sides, and it probably has a lot to do with depending on the type of industry that is being affected, the type of technology, the maturity of the algorithms, and so forth and so on. But from a CI standpoint, we strongly believe there are certain definite advantages in utilizing AI and this machine learning type of intelligence with neural nets and maybe some deep learning capabilities to do a number of things as indicated here related to who, what, when, and where. But you will always need, we believe, that there's a human interaction that is extremely valuable and necessary in order to be able to make the determination out of the outcome of that data. Data is fact, it's not truth. And that's something you need to be able to understand in order to be utilizing, the AI technology in order to gather and analyze the information as fast as possible, but use the human interface with the organizational infrastructure that can execute on that data in the best way. So in order to really extract the intelligence from this information, you need to have decision makers, and if you click again on Jesper, there's a quote on the bottom that we always like to refer to, but basically decision makers need to make these robust ways to handle decision making and knowledge gathering tasks, right? So this is that combination of what we call the augmented intelligence aspect, the information or the artificial intelligence gathering aspects and interpreting aspects versus the human's ability to use that information and act upon it. So what we did here is really look at, as part of the questioning process and that Jesper referred to, and the hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that we've talked to before, we pretty much did an evaluation as to what their perspectives might be in terms of understanding where are tasks that machines might be best suited to do, and what are those tasks that humans might be best suited to do. So with the results, if you can show that, please. Essentially, it's pretty much nailing down exactly what I summarized, that machines are very good at repeatable tasks, right? It's all that initial data collection, data and analytics, the taxonomy that's used in the data analytics, the heavy lifting that's involved with that, the computational aspect, those sort of repeated routines, and even the visualization, because that, if you remember, was one of the issues that came up as one of the main challenges. And having tools that can not only collect and analyze the data, but provide a visualization of the data that can be usable is actually what we feel that machines would be very good at doing in a CI space. Contrast to that, in the human side, again, analyzing, interpreting, collaborating with the organizations, understanding execution plans, implementing it into a development strategy, having your organization be able to unify to go forward with that sort of strategy. This is the kind of things that these are the kinds of things that we feel humans are going to always be best at. There's that interpreting element that we don't feel, at least in the immediate future, that machines will be able to do. Yes, as machines get more adaptive and the more the technology around neural nets and deep learning becomes more predictive and therefore the more prescriptive in its ability to analyze data, we still think humans will be playing a continued important role far into the future on understanding how to implement these sorts of findings and recommendations that come out of the machine aspects of intelligence. So there's always going to be a balance in that. Again, it might vary based upon the maturity of the AI algorithms, the difference between supervised and unsupervised data within the AI algorithm approach. And of course, within the industry, there's going to be differences, as well as the organizational structure and the maturity of the organization that's being affected. But the ability for you as a practitioner to understand that balance and to know how to use that best for your organization is going to be a very important requirement as you develop your integrated AI, ML, and CI modeling in the future.
So here's the next question that we asked participants as well.
So with this, we basically asked them, when are machines best and what are humans best at? And you can put the data up, and we can just talk to it all as a whole. So we asked them in these various categories, and many of it was very much in line with what we had just stated. What was interesting, though, was that there was still an analytical part that was kind of in the middle of the storyline as
Yeah.
that was very interesting for us, because we felt that there were ways that these were more leaning toward either the machine side or the human side. And it was interesting that, I guess, again, based upon the statement I made earlier, it could be dependent on the industry that you're in, or it could be dependent on the organization that you're in, and again, the maturity of the machine learning algorithm that you're employing. But one of the things that stood out was the collaborative element. Machines are good at managing data. Humans, I think, are good at managing people. So that's where the collaborative element is going to be a very much of a human-based influence within your organization decision-making skills.
Yeah, and I agree. I just wanted to add, because I remember there was quite a heated discussion on the analytics and deliver part. I don't think anyone really was in the middle. Either you were like a 1 or a 5, and then the
Yes.
score ended up being 3 in the middle. But either you thought that machines were much better or humans were better, but it sort of ended up averaging out to 3. But the actual differences were like in 2 camps there.
So what we did here is basically pretty elementarily mapped out essentially what we feel would be the best way to look at this. I mean, if you look at humans and machines, on the left side, there's elements by which humans are better, machines are better. But if you look at it from an augmented intelligence, where you have humans and machines working together collectively, there's some real advantages across the board. So on the left, again, machines and humans have different feature sets. You use them in a different stepwise iterations in terms of collect, analyze, disseminate, interpret, that sort of thing. And there's advantages, on the right side when you have this augmented perspective. Your timed insights and timed execution is going to be better managed. Early warning signals is something that's going to be reflected very much in the analytical and interpreting processes. And ideally, this augmented platform is really where we're seeing that you have the best of both worlds. Now, again, being able to determine what level of human versus machine intelligence that you're going to utilize is going to be different based upon the industry, based upon the company, based upon the maturity of algorithms, and so forth. And then, the bottom line here is that, the complementary relationship between human and machines is what's going to be the best answer.
Good. Thanks, Paul. So I think before we start wrapping up and opening up for questions as well, if there are any questions, we thought we'd take this case example, which has to do with chess. And I love this example because I think it's a great indicator of how things might develop between machines and humans in the future. If you look at how things have been happening and developing in the chess world. And of course, I'm assuming everyone here knows what chess is. Chess has sort of for hundreds of years been the ultimate game of intelligence, and there's been lots of great chess masters and everything. And for many years in the 90s, there was a world champion from Russia called Garry Kasparov, who was sort of the undisputed world champion for many years. And then I'm sure some of you remember as well, about 20 years ago, it was big news that IBM had developed a chess program called Deep Blue that for the first time beat a human in chess. And that was big news back then. But this fact that the machine beat the human, it didn't really mean that humans stopped playing chess or that machines dominated. What happened in the 20 years following that was that humans and machines started working together, and there were sort of formed human AI teams that were called centaurs that were much better, either when they competed against humans only or machines only. The human machine teams almost always won. So that sort of combination of human creativity and then the logic and the memory and the processing power of the machines was sort of unbeatable for many years. But then something happened in just the last year and a half. So looking back to 2016, I don't know if you are very familiar with chess or not, but there was a computer program called Stockfish 8, which was the world's computer chess champion in 2016. It had access to all this human experience, hundreds of centuries of experience in chess, and it could calculate 70 million chess positions per second. It had all this processing power, and it was the #1 computer program. But then in December 2017, so not so long ago, less than 2 years ago, I think some of you have probably heard of Google developing a machine learning algorithm called AlphaZero. And it was sort of developed with absolutely no knowledge of chess to start with, but the algorithm was so finely tuned that it learned chess extremely fast. And in 2017, for the first time, this machine learning algorithm beat the Stockfish 8 computer program, which had all this calculation power in it. And I think there's two interesting parts in this that we can learn from. One, I think, well, first of all, I don't know, it's up here as well, but guess how long it took for AlphaZero to learn how to play chess from nothing to complete mastery with no human aid. It took 4 hours, 4 hours to sort of learn based on the algorithm that it had from zero to nothing. And that says something about the power of a good machine learning algorithm. If you get it right and it learns and it plays and plays, it can do tremendous things in a very short period of time. So that's interesting in itself. The other thing that I found interesting about this is that the algorithm didn't learn, compared to the computer program, the algorithm didn't learn anything from humans. So everything it learned came from the machine algorithm, and that meant that many of the moves it made seemed very unconventional and creative to the human eye. It was sort of unthought of before, but this was sort of a side effect. The machine almost became more creative than the humans, which is an interesting development. So I think this is I'm not sure this is the way that things will go for sort of competitive intelligence, but I think it's an interesting case and just makes you think a lot about what can happen sort of in the future and act as sort of an early signal of what could potentially happen down the road to human AI teams in other areas than chess. So for me, it sort of makes me think: is it possible for Paul said that humans will be around for a long time doing the analysis and being creative, but Paul is much more on the human side than I am. I'm more sort of on the machine side, and I can see sort of situations or scenarios where machines become better than humans at, for example, spotting trends and opportunities and threats and predicting competitor moves and even making recommendations and actions that you should do. And in many cases, much better, or more consistently at least, than what humans can do. So it's something to think about as a potential future scenario. And then wrapping up, and so based on what we've heard so far about where we are today, augmented intelligence, the combination of humans and machines, what next for us as competitive intelligence professionals?
So this presentation is really the purpose of this presentation was really to give you an idea, an overview of what the perspectives might be, what we feel that might be based upon the research data that we've collected from the number of individuals that we pulled, as well as the offline research that's been going on in the marketplace and the industry as a whole. There's this augmented intelligence, perspective that we think is going to be important. Now, again, what does that mean from an implementation and practical sense for organizations? There's really going to be, as I mentioned, what sort of information, what can we automate via the tools? There are a number of tools that are out there, as evidenced in one of the slides that was shown earlier. There's literally dozens and dozens of different sort of what we commonly call knowledge management tools or information management tools, CRM tools. These are the kinds of tools that help us manage data. Now, the thing that's going to be important is really bolting on an AI platform on this data, because as you know, AI gets better with more intelligent and more information that it's being fed, and having these algorithms be utilized in a way such that you can manage both the supervised and unsupervised data learning algorithms in order to increase your volume of information that your algorithms can learn off of. So Jesper, if you want to click on the bullet points here on the bottom, please. You can just click all of them, because I'm going to kind of talk to them all as a whole. So the knowledge management data repositories that I talked about, this management of supervised and unsupervised learning algorithms, how to formulate and encode or design your autoencoders for your intelligence gathering and your algorithm learning processes. The ability to continually feed these algorithms the kind of data that you need utilizing knowledge management systems that basically, are big black holes or vacuums that sucks in all this information. The source content that you're pulling in that has to be very varied in many different types, both pictorial, both structured and unstructured data. Again, social, industry, analytical, internal, external. The source of content is absolutely critical in order to get the right kind of intelligence that can be developed from these learning algorithms. But the key to all of this is the creativity element. And they're basically saying here that from a creative standpoint, the professional needs to understand how to take all of this information and develop this creative and entrepreneurial innovation element that can be interpreted from this data in order to apply it to this new world that we're all being faced with the digital revolution and the development of these new types of business models that are based off of ideas rather than off of traditional products and services. So this is really where we're needing to change the mindset of the intelligence community as well as the strategic community and organizations to be really able to utilize this sort of augmented intelligence information and drive this through our learning processes so that we have an ability to have an organization that is nimble enough to respond to a lot of the disruptive, but also to be the disruptive element in the marketplace today. And that's really where we need to have this transition, where I believe AI can help us understand and manage that to achieve that sort of goal.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think we combined very well to make a good augmented intelligence presentation with our respective skills.
Thank you. So if there are any questions, please let us know.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for that very, very informative presentation. There are a few questions.
Highly recommend also to link in and communicate with us on the links below. So please feel free to use that going forward. But please, Michelle, continue.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I thought you were done with your thought.
No problem.
Question, what is the sample size of the surveyors of this question, machine versus human tasks?
Yeah, I think the sample size for that, it's more a combination. I'd say we had sessions with about 40 or 50 people in each. Most of them are sort of seasoned CI professionals from 2 skip sessions. So say maybe the sample is about almost 100 people.
And there was also some samples collected offline too, so probably closer to around 120, 130 people. Yeah. Industry professionals, primarily in the practitioner environment, not necessarily academia or solution providers. So it was primarily out of the practitioner space.
Okay. I hope that answers your question. I do have a question from early on in the presentation. Just joining, were the challenge answers given selected from a drop-down list or a free field? It was
That
from
must
about,
have been the
yeah.
challenge where we had the word cloud. No, that was a free. People could type in any words they want, so there was no sort of pre-selected responses or anything like that. No.
And the attendee says, great presentation, guys. Thank you for answering.
Thank you.
For the companies developing human and/or technology CI services for commercial users, what are they getting right, and what can they do better to address challenges of time to insights and time to execution?
Yeah, so I'll take a first pass at that, Jesper, if you don't mind. What I see a lot of is focusing more on the collection analytics process. And there's a lot of tools out there, a lot of solution providers that really capture and are very much focused on, the data itself, the data analytics, and the visualization of the data. But as a practitioner, and I've always got my practitioner hat on, even though I'm a strategist as well. I'm always thinking about, okay, that's only a part of the equation. It's a very fundamental part, but it's a relatively smaller part, because with that data, what are you going to do with it, and how are you going to make an impact in the marketplace by having this data that you can do something with that gives you that competitive advantage? And this is where I keep referring back to the knowledge that can be obtained through the intelligence that can be refined via AI. And then how do we as an organization act on that intelligence? So it's not just an ability to have a tool that says, hey, here's what you guys should do, and look at how fast I got this information for you. That's one part. But the other part is, and this is not necessarily a tool based, but this is more of a mindset, cultural, organization based, is how does your organization then respond and be able to execute on that information very quickly and rapidly without obviously, impacting the organization too much from a cost perspective, but moreover, still be effective in getting out there first in the industry. And you'll see a lot of companies are changing their organizational structure from the traditional hierarchical platform, which has literally been around for thousands of years. Our industry's model, a marketplace today, has changed dramatically over the last 20 years, 50 years. So by employing the still hierarchical structure, is many companies are looking at that and saying that's not the most effective way to implement these fast-moving changes that need to be done to be able to compete in today's environment. So they're converting to more, work hub type scenarios that are horizontally jointed, and some other different things. That's a whole nother webinar in itself. But my point is that the intelligence information that's being gathered is focused on the analytics and methodologies, and without understanding really the execution and the interpretation and the development and implementation of the information and how it can best suit your company. That's the problem. That's the difference.
Jesper, do you have anything to add to that?
No, nothing to add to that.
Perfect. Some more questions, gents. What do you foresee as the biggest challenge for us in the transition towards AI integration, and are there any landmines to watch for?
I think from my perspective, it has a lot to do with what we talked about today. Sort of, really, I mean, a challenge is defining what humans should do and what machines and technologies should do, and not try to get in each other's way, so to speak. I think I don't think it's good if we continue doing sort of manual newsletters and a lot of sort of repetitive tasks are being done by humans. Let that go and let the machines take care of that, and then make sure that you understand how you can use this new technology. So that, because it's going to go so quickly, so that I think it's important to be aware of that, because it's going to go so fast that suddenly you'll find machines doing things that you've been doing in the past. So I think that's a big challenge, just being aware of where to use technology in the best place.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a couple of quick points, but Jesper's point is extremely important, and I don't want people to, definitely need to take that into consideration. But the other couple of areas that I'd like to talk about is really the clarity of the objective, understanding how the intelligence or the artificial intelligence mechanisms and algorithms are going to use to achieve that objective, and to not get hung up on the details in terms of, got to get that 98th percentile of accuracy or 99th percentile of accuracy. We don't live in an environment where that's a luxury anymore. And at some point, decisions need to be made with without the 100% accuracy level. And I'm sure we can all as practitioners relate to that. And where is that threshold by which you act and don't act? I think AI will help us get to that point faster. But I've seen organizations get into an analysis paralysis state by waiting for that 80th, 90th, 100th percentile of data before they make a move. And that could be critically bad from an organizational standpoint.
Thank you. Next question. Where would you focus if you needed to develop a business case for an M and CI solution?
I think I can respond quickly to that. I think what we've seen when we've done our research, the things that are easiest to do and easiest to build a business case around have to do with using natural language processing technology. So things like automatic classification of information and entity recognition, so that it automatically categorizes information and puts it in the right place. That's a very easy win, I think, for AI technology. The other easy win, I think, has a lot to do with also automatically summarizing and automatically translating information. Those are areas where machine learning technology is very, very good today and can be applied quickly, and you get a lot of value from it straight away. Then looking a bit to the future, I mean, nice things that would be nice to have from a CI perspective are things like recommendation engines and clustering and things like that. But that's, I think, a bit further into the future before that becomes more common.
So along those lines, the whole thing here is it isn't a big bang approach, right? You don't come in and just drop a big AI platform and expect things to, churn out accordingly. I mean, these are small wins that you need to build up because there's a credibility aspect, there's a trust aspect, there's a ability to understand and how to use the data that comes out of these platforms. So you really want to approach this in a methodical perspective. It's not a race or a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So that's really the kind of perspective that you have to take on any sort of implementation. You'll identify those landmines sooner in the process than having a big bang sort of approach. So slow and steady wins the race, in my opinion.
Thank you. We do have a few more questions and a little bit more time. So what would you suggest be the best way for CI agencies moving forward, especially in the biopharma space, where there are a lot of human intervention is required? Excuse me.
Well, personally, I think you need to map out, again, where, as you say, human intervention is required. Where are those specific areas are they required, and why? And understand, can these human-based areas be automated in that sense? And if not, okay, there's some decision criteria there, and then you can do the same with the other areas that can be information-based. And understand, what are the tools and technology we can put in place to be able to, effectively automate that as well.
Yeah, and also I think you'll find that technology can do most of the problem solving. I think what humans will have to switch to is the more, as Paul was saying, the more creative job of finding the problems. What's the question that I want to ask? And then you can ask that to the machines. The machines won't know what question to ask, and so that's something that I think CI agencies will be very good at. What is it? Asking the right questions and putting information into context, and then using technology and applying that in technology.
Okay, we have one last question, gentlemen. Should we rely on cutting-edge technology which is capable of interaction or focus on building wider knowledge of humans to make them capable of the concept of AI? What in your opinion, will define the success of this concept?
My initial reaction is yes to both. There needs to be
that's a big question, though.
Yeah, it is. It needs to be the upscaling of skill sets, I think, across the board, not only from a human standpoint, but again, the more sophisticated technology that comes across from an AI standpoint. The human sophistication and abilities to upscale their skill sets it needs to occur as well. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand, and I'm hoping I'm answering your question.
No, I'd agree with that. I think you can't do one or the other. You have to do both. Yeah.
Okay. Paul and Jesper, thank you very, very much for this very informative program. I do encourage you, everyone who is on the line, to link in with Jesper and Paul. They are amenable and receptive to any contact that way. And you have any questions, you can reach out to them directly in that way, or you're welcome to contact me, and I'm happy to forward your information and question over to them. We did manage to get through all the questions, so that's good, and thank you both for taking the time to answer them. The recording of this program will be available on the SCIP website by the end of the week, and should you need it prior to that, I'll be happy to send it to you. Jesper and Paul, thank you so much again for this very, very informative program. We appreciate your time, and thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, folks, for attending.
Have a good
Thanks,
day, everybody.
everyone.